Ready? Okay. Good afternoon. It is November 2nd, 2022. We are here for a Legal and Finance Committee meeting. Let's start with a roll call and determination of quorum, please.
Armstrong.
Here.
Roseland.
Here.
Nordstrom.
Here.
Salomon.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you so much. Now we have the adoption of the agenda. I'd welcome a motion.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Mr. Solomon and a second from everyone else. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. I don't see any general public comment. We do have one for item 9, but we will save that for later. And we'll just move forward. Okay, moving right along. We have the minutes, mayor item on 2. Let's start with the police department. Chief Hedrick, you have the floor for number 3.
Thank you. This is just standard run-of-the-mill annual replacement of older vehicles. So we're replacing 2 older vehicles.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Moving along to the finance department to cover 4 and 5. Interim Director Davis, you have the floor.
Item 4 is some volunteers. Item 5 is the Wester RSVP Plus grant. It's a continuation, so we're just reapplying for that. Dave Uhas and Ann Hines are here if you have any questions of them.
Great. I'll defer to Mr. Uhas. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Dave Uhas, Finance Manager. With me here is the RSP Director, Ann Hines. The item on the agenda today is just our annual renewal for our grant with CNCS. The grant amounts to $135,300. There is a 30% match in kind on this grant. The city has sponsored this grant for many, many years. The in kind and the match come from donations, in kind services. Guess that's where we're at. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Welcome, Ms. Hines. Do you have anything to add? Don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, I don't think so. It's like Dave said, the program's been with the city for over 40 years. It's a strong program. We have right now well over 500, well, we have over 600 volunteers, 500 active, 60 volunteer stations, so we're going strong and excited to see what the next year brings.
You read my mind. I was wondering how long this program was going, 40 years. That's impressive. We do have 2 people in the queue, starting with Mr. Jones. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. What if the grant isn't received, if it's not renewed, what would happen to the program?
It would disband. You'll see that. In fact, we had picked up, what was it, 8 counties? Because the Spearfish area relinquished the grant, so that would be where we're at. The city would have to relinquish the grant, and because the funding.
Is there much of a chance of that happening?
We have a very strong history with CNCS,
And this is funded from whatever level is funding the grant?
Right.
Their funding secure?
70% of the funding comes from federal level.
And the federal government secure? Well, wait a minute, that's another question for another day. So, yes, okay, so the likelihood of it being approved is strong?
Yes.
Would that be correct? Okay, so we don't have to be overly concerned about that happening because we've been funded year after year after year, secure program. It does great things for the community, so the likelihood of it being approved is high.
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Solomon, I'll defer to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question, any requirements on our behalf regarding the grant?
There's annual financial reporting. There's semi-annual progress reportings. We do annual report on the volunteers and the objectives and the performance measures or performance goals, how we reach those. So there are reporting requirements.
Okay.
And as I said, there are in-kind and matches. Now, some of the match comes from donations, and we've already secured most of those donations, well over $15,000.
So you provide all that data to the CNCS?
CNCS, yep.
Is that correct? Well, I think, Mr. Nordstrom, you were here when this was on the chopping block, RSVP, and we were able to keep it going, and I'm really happy to see the fruit that it's bearing. So well done and good job. May it continue to thrive and do good work.
It's a
Thanks.
great program.
Thank you, Mr. Solon. Mr. Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For Mr. Uhas, I want to congratulate you and Ann for doing a terrific job of actually turning around this program. We've got an A-team here that's really doing a fabulous job with there. The CNCS, which is a community services organization at the national level, I was a member of that group way back. And we had an opportunity to help out different areas of different variety of agencies, but we wound up with the RSVP Plus being one of the major awardees that got this program started up. And now we are covering basically, I call it West River, all of West River now, and these two folks have done an excellent job of providing that. But one thing that we do need a little help on, if it's not, and it's not very much work, not very hard, but we could use a couple of advisory council members to be on this committee. And they only meet like once or twice a year, and it's just helping out Mr. Uhas and Ms. Hines on their program. So we'll take all the help we can get and keep up the good work. Thanks, folks.
Thank you, Richie. Appreciate it.
Excellent words. Thank you, Mr. Nordstrom. Before I move forward, Mr. Jones asked me to back up and do a U-turn and go back to the police department for number 3. He has some questions for the chief.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry about skipping over that. Hopefully that was a legal U-turn you made.
I had my blinker on.
Good. Chief, I'm happy to see that these vehicles are being purchased locally through Liberty. Did they match the state bid then in order for us to purchase through them, or what took place?
So back in February, we submitted our vehicle purchasing plan to the council, and it was approved. We initially were looking at 2 Ford Explorers. However, since then, we found out that they weren't able to provide, the company we were working with weren't able to provide those Explorers, so it caused us to reach out and find other options. As far as matching state bid, I guess I don't know that off the top of my head. We're having a struggle finding vehicles in general right now, so if I had to guess, it seems like they would be very close to state bid, if not meeting it already.
So the reason we're not going down that road is because their vehicles are too hard to find to match up to that?
Yeah, vehicles at this time are hard to find.
Normally, when the way I understood it, we always purchase items that have been approved on a state bid that everyone buys off, and then if local vendors want to match that, they can, and that's what I thought was the case here. But we're just making a cash purchase of vehicles just like anyone else would, coming in off the street, that just made a U-turn?
I'm sure it's all here. I haven't read this super thoroughly. If you give me a minute, I can probably look it up and get you that answer. If they're not matching the state bid, they're probably right at it.
I guess I'm more interested in why we're veering away from the process. I mean, the dollar amount matters too. I'm just curious why we're veering away from the process to make the purchase rather than the one that, from what I understand, we always normally do. And I get it that vehicles are very hard to get, and we've had to do that with other bids that have come to the city. The council has acted and said, okay, here, go ahead and waive from this to make this purchase. I'm just curious if this is one of those or not. Because I very much like the fact that we're doing business with a local vendor. That's very important, I believe. But if we had to waiver from the process, I think we need to be aware of that so we can explain that to any constituents who might be interested in that.
If you give me a minute, I can read through this packet and probably find you the answer.
Sure. Chairman, is that okay with you?
Absolutely, and the city attorney's waiting in, so why don't we go to Director Landine while Chief Hedrick does that? Is that fair? Okay. Director Landine?
I just wanted to say, while you usually see that we're purchasing something based on the state bid, that's one of several ways to purchase a vehicle. I have no knowledge of this purchase directly, or under what authority it's being purchased, but it's not that we don't want to work with local dealers. The reality is, frankly, they're probably doing well enough. They don't need to match the price. So there is a dealer in Pierre who you usually see, and that's because they're in Pierre. I think a large part of their business is matching the state bid price. They're probably the ones that give the state bid price. So that's primarily the reason. I know in the past we have reached out to the local dealers to see if they were willing to give us the vehicle at that price, and most of them aren't. Again, I'm assuming because they sell enough vehicles at retail price, they don't need to sell to us at state bid price. But yeah, there's various exceptions. I think usually staff is just looking for whatever the best deal for the city is. And frankly, at this point, we can see bids from a number of government contracts. So basically, you can almost pick out the vehicle that has all the features you need, and there's somebody that's bid it out, and there's a decent price for it. So.
Okay, thank you, Director Landine. Mr. Nordstrom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, and maybe this will be more helpful for the chief, or chief can respond to this, is that I'm reading over a memo from Captain Andy Becker, and it says that the Ford Interceptors, the SUVs, are no longer going to be built. And so that's the way I'm reading that. So they're just totally unavailable, and that's why we're going to the Dodge Durangos. Whether it's competing or in line with the state bids, I haven't got that information in front of me, but maybe Chief Hedrick has had excuse me, an opportunity to find that information.
Okay, and then our interim.
But I think it's important that that's okay. I think it's important that everybody understands what Captain Becker has to say in his memo. The vehicles are just not being built, so
Yeah.
basically because of the chips shortage. And I'll yield to
Right.
Chief Hedrick, please.
The
No.
interim finance director is in the queue, and then I'll go back to you, Chief. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to add the same thing, that many times we've tried to make these purchases off the state contract when the manufacturers just decide they don't want to build those vehicles anymore. So the police department has had to go out and look for some other options to find vehicles for them. They may not necessarily be the exact ones that are on state contract, because we've tried that route and it's not available.
Okay, great. Chief?
No, I was just going to add that usually that is our process, and back in February, when we submitted our vehicle replacement plan, we thought we were going to be able to do that. It's just since then they've canceled our order, so now we're looking to try and find replacement vehicles with what's available. So, we're doing the best we can with what's out there, honestly, and with the chip shortage, anyone out there trying to look for a vehicle is challenging right now. So we feel like we need to replace some vehicles that are older, and we're trying to move that forward, but if there are further concerns, we can always pause.
Good input. Let's go back to Mr. Jones.
Thank you very much. Geez, I feel like the guy who stole Christmas today. My question is just about the process, and the process that I understand that we normally use, and just wanted to know if this was following that, and if it's not, then as to why. So just basic questions, not trying to pull the rug out from anyone. I get it, and I totally support the purchase. I just want to be able to understand the process when I talk to people about purchases, or if they have questions. I believe we have a right to know if the process that we always follow was followed, or if we waived from it. That's all. So no offense to anyone, not trying to step on anyone's toes or anything, just a question about a purchase. and how we're spending the taxpayers' money, I fully support it. Pound for pound, I'm the biggest supporter of the police department in this room. So this has nothing to do with not wanting to support the purchase. It's the process and making sure that we honor that so we can explain it to our constituents. Done.
Yep, I don't think you stole Christmas at all, actually. I think we had a good discussion over it. And Mr. Jones, if you had a question about it, I guarantee you there are constituents out there that probably had the same questions. So I always welcome a hearty discussion. And anything else on that item? No. I think that was really, oh, okay, I think that was great. And that's why we're here. No, this is why we're here, for discussion. So wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to put my blinker on and make another U-turn and go to Community Development. Director Fisher, could I please have you address 6 and 7?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So items 6 and 7 are typical documents that you would see with our CDBG program. Michelle Schulke is here as our division manager, and if we could defer to her, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Number 6 is seeking authorization to sign fiscal year 2022 CDBG funding for Common Bond Communities. This is for the same project that was previously awarded funding over at 21 Racine Street at the corner of Omaha and La Crosse. Number 7 is assigning the contractual obligations from Common Bond Communities to CB Rapid City Housing Limited Partnership, an affiliated organization who holds the title to that land.
Great. Mr. Nordstrom has a question or comment?
Primarily comment, and thank you, Ms. Schulke, for bringing us forward on it. I've been looking forward to working with Common Bond because I've heard good things about them. As far back as 3 years ago, I believe, is when we started getting acquainted with them. They are one of the more reputable out-of-state developers that I'm aware of that are coming here to Rapid City to help us out on our housing situation. So I'm looking forward to the addition of Common Bond here in Rapid City. So I look forward to seeing this contract signed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more comments on number 6? I'll just add in, 5 years ago, I went to dinner with David Lust and Deidre from Common Bond, and my question was, when are you coming to Rapid City? So my only complaint is that it took 5 years, but I'm delighted that they are here, and Rapid City is now part of their jurisdiction, because good things are going to come from that. If anybody researches Common Bond, you'll see that they've done wonderful things in the Midwest. Okay, moving right along. City Attorney's Office, number 8, Director Landine.
This is just a cleanup as far as the final piece of the Homestead Street project, where now that the street is completed, the landowner that built the street is now dedicating the right-of-way.
Any comments on number 8? Okay. Going through the consent items 1 through 8, I'd welcome a motion.
Second.
I have a motion to approve by Mr. Nordstrom and a second by Mr. Jones. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving along, we now have our another public comment period. We have 2 public speakers. Let's start with Mrs. Tonchi Weaver. Please come up to the microphone, addressing item 9. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's nice to be here, too. I will probably not be in town when this is on your general council agenda, so I wanted to talk to you about it today. You have no idea how thrilled I am to be able to support something that's coming in. It's kind of unusual. Usually I'm up here defying something, but I am addressing, I guess it would be subsection G in the ordinance that is the new language, and I'll just read it. No cannabis establishment shall allow the sales or service of any alcoholic beverage as defined in SDCL 35-1-1 at the establishment for consumption either off the premises or upon the premises of the establishment. I think this is a great ordinance. We are dealing with intoxicants and we are dealing with hallucinogens. And I think this sends the message that you are in tune with what is beneficial to the community. I'm always talking about the role of government, and the role of government is to maintain a civil society, and sending, and encouraging drug use or mixing those two things is not going to accomplish a civil society. So I appreciate your effort to make that distinction, to separate the two. It doesn't impede anyone's freedom that is legally entitled to use either of those products. It just says that you cannot mix them at the establishment. So the community is getting the message. Young people pay attention to things. There's a reason you can buy alcohol over here, but you can't buy it over here. You can buy cannabis here, but you can't buy it over here. So I just want to give you my support on that, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kitrick Jeffries. Please come to the microphone. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kit Jeffries. I represent Dakota Cannabis Consulting. I think the cannabis industry looks at this as a positive policy. We want to be separated, especially in medical cannabis establishments, and malt beverage and liquor licenses being combined is not necessarily good common sense policy. So separating them is. So we stand in support of this particular ordinance, and I appreciate all your time. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You want me to read it in first? Okay, we'll close public comment and move to item 9. This is the introduction and first reading of ordinance number 6553, an ordinance amending the code to prohibit alcohol sales in medical cannabis establishments and to allow flexibility on the commencement of operations for medical cannabis establishments. And we have Mr. Solomon. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could I have the City Attorney's Office just provide a brief summary from their point of view? I know that I see Justin is here, but that's all right with Mr. Landine. Just for our benefit, but also the public's.
Yeah, absolutely. Madam Chair, members of the committee, Justin Williams, Assistant City Attorney. So the ordinance does two main things, the first of which is it prohibits the sale of alcohol in any medical cannabis establishment. That includes alcohol for sale on premises or off premises. So I compare it to, for example, like in a bar, you go and they might serve you an alcoholic beverage for you to consume on premises. It would also include the liquor store type situation where they would sell you an alcoholic beverage to be consumed elsewhere. So neither of those would be allowed under the proposed ordinance. The other part of the ordinance would allow some flexibility for establishments upon when they open or commence operations. This is based on, actually the state rules require that establishments open within 1 year of being granted their license. When we put the city ordinance together, the council had passed the ordinance that also had the same requirement of a 1 year opening. There is an option in the ordinance to allow an additional 180 days after that 1 year period that it could be extended. However, we found kind of basically in talking with members of the industry that they're really running into supply issues with product, and the 180 days might not be sufficient. So we're proposing to change that to allow an additional 1 year after the year.
And I believe the state has also made a similar conclusion. So frankly, we're just trying to catch up, because if the state allows an extension and we don't, I think pretty soon you're going to be hearing from a lot of people who want one. So frankly, after discussing it internally, we decided to be proactive and match what the state was doing.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I could, I actually brought a copy of the administrative rule. They had a rules hearing at the state level yesterday, I believe, and it was passed. So that should go into effect, I believe, 30 days after final publishment or something like that.
And I appreciate that. That was one of my questions, was if the state does not go ahead with that, what we would do, because it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube, so to speak, if we start it and then try to take it away again.
Yep, absolutely. It was passed through the interim rules review committee yesterday.
Okay. You know, I would just say, I think this ordinance is wise and fair, and I appreciate the city bringing it forward. I'm happy to support it. I do also want to thank Dr. Jones for really bringing the issue to light on the council. I think that was very good for the community discussion, and I think it's good governance for us. Obviously, been better to do this a year ago, but today's the next best day, and I'm glad the city is moving forward with this ordinance, and I'm happy to support it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Mr. Jones?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Mr. Wilson, or Williams. Williams, thank you. I want to publicly thank you for the email that you sent to us, laying all this out, and I hope you saw the email that I sent back to you, sir, because this helped me a ton, your explanation, you laying all that out for us, especially the second part of it. Obviously, the part about not allowing sales at places, I'm all over that. But the second part about this, us being, you know, looking at this extension to the year part, excellent. To you, Mr. Landine, our legal office, thank you for looking ahead and helping us plan ahead to do business better. I really appreciate your work and getting this kind of information to us. Very good, very helpful. I'm proud of the council for the action we took on denying the most recent request. I think it was a very courageous step for the council to take, and I'm very proud of us for doing it. I received a tremendous amount of comment from people who were glad that we did, who believed that that needed to happen as well. So I tip my hat to the council for doing the right thing, and I support this 100%. I think it's how we need to do business and keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Nordstrom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The previous comments that have been made is pretty much what I was going to say, so I'm only going to support their suggestions and comments as well. I think there's one more thing, and I don't want to imply that I want to add it to this ordinance because I support it as is, but one thing that is to be considered is the distance between establishments, cannabis establishments of any kind. The concern that I have is say, for example, we got a strip mall and there's two strip malls adjacent to each other, and one is across the parking lot from the other, and we could wind up with another establishment within a few feet of a second establishment. I don't know if that's the correct thing to do either, so it's just a missing component to have a future discussion on. And it's just everything else has been mentioned, and the summary that's been provided for us is excellent. I like the one-year extension on this as well, and I think that'll help out a lot of folks as well. 6 months? Anyway, the extension is going to be helpful. So that's the only concern I have is the distance between working establishments now at this time. So thank you. I'll yield.
Excellent conversation. It's interesting when we're bringing everybody working together. It's just a wonderful thing. And if I may, I just want to commend our city attorney's office for doing this and so expeditiously. Fastest I've ever seen an ordinance change since I've been in this position. So great job. Okay, I will welcome a motion.
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Mr. Jones, second by Mr. Solomon. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Great. Let's move to our alderman items. Mr. Jones, will you start off, share your committee assignments briefly?
Certainly, thank you. Busy as we all have been, enjoyed meeting with Tom Johnson, the director of Elevate, a few weeks ago about some projects going on and the status of some of those. Attended the School of Mines President's Fundraiser Dinner a few weeks ago. That was just an absolutely wonderful event. Several of the engineering students who received scholarships got up and spoke, and just a wonderful event. Attended the recreational marijuana luncheon meeting training held recently, put on by Visit Rapid City. Committee assignment of being on the Humane Society. They are working hard on establishing some current, or not some current, but some ongoing fundraisers that take place every year, so they don't have to just do random fundraising. They want to have some in place that are constant and annual, so they can really plan better on their money and on what they're doing. They do a tremendous job with what they do. Their employees are not paid well. They have no benefits, and yet they do a tremendous job. They're a very loyal, dedicated group down there, and I hope some good things can happen for them in the future because they do a tremendous job. I'm working with Parks and Recreation on some projects in Ward 1. There's some folks who have requested some lights on on a Christmas tree in one of the parks, and we're working on that. And also some sidewalk projects that are due by the city to do on Parkview and Anna Maria Drive and a couple others. So just some things going on like that. And thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Jones. Moving to Mr. Roseland. Will you please share?
Get there. Okay. On the 24th, I met with the Sustainability Committee via Zoom. Basically, the committee is still working on guidelines for our new coordinator for sustainability that will hopefully be hired in the near future. I also met on the 24th with Black Hills Council of Local Governments, which in my mind was an eye-opener. Pretty brilliant guys there and women who basically are really kind of meeting together to promote the cities and towns of this area. And on the 28th, I met with Vicki Fisher, had a really good conversation with her, and eye-opening and informative. Last night really wasn't due to my committees, but I met with Carrie Huber's government class at Stevens High School, and they were basically preventing a forum of politicians who are running for government and pros and cons of who did the best job and that sort of thing, and presenting their case. So that was very interesting with the high school students. Last night I met with a group of Cub Scouts who were interested in the ins and outs of being on the city council. I learned a lot from them. They gave me questions that made me think, which is really good because that's what I need. Even coming from 7- and 8-year-olds, it's pretty impressive.
Those are good questions.
Yes. So that was pretty impressive, and I'm glad I went there. And I basically met with the Rapid City Urban and Wildlife Committee this morning, discussing deer problems in Rapid City and wildlife and birds. And they basically said at the end that maybe we may not meet in the future for a while because nothing's happening. It's all being done and nothing's changing. So it was a good meeting. I enjoyed meeting with, I guess, people I haven't met before, and it's been basically really eye-opening and informative to me. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roseland. We'll go to Mr. Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess a few things to add. Went to the Visit Rapid City Board meeting. I'm on that board. A lot of discussion and excitement surrounding the Sports Commission and bringing on a sports commissioner. The fact is, we all know tourists are great just from coming around the country, but the money is really in these regional sports tournaments with families and multi-day events, and so really getting a cohesive effort, getting a strategic plan, looking at all of our facilities and options in the area and how we can best attract more tournaments to the area. Speaking of tournaments, I was able to go out to visit the Fright, I think it was a Fright Fest at Dakota soccer fields. That was pretty awesome to see. I think 2,500 people or kids in soccer tournaments at the fields, and all of the activity, it was bursting at the seams. And I think that was a really good example of the kinds of things that we want to see in a community, and I really commend the work that the organizers did there to bring it all together. I think that was really tremendous. Had some informal discussions with military folks as we're getting ready for this. Don't know if you heard, we got a B-21 bomber mission coming to the area. So I'm really excited to be a part of those kind of conversations moving forward with the rest of the council, but the entire community. This is a community effort and I think we all are on board with making sure that we are ready to roll on that. I attended a Gallantly Forward Gala for the Sergeant Colton Durr Foundation, a tremendous organization that helps veterans with PTSD and families also of those veterans. It's an incredible local organization doing great work, and anytime we can support our veterans, it's great. And last, speaking of veterans, I get the opportunity to participate in a Veterans Day event at Main Street Square on November 11th. I believe more information is to come, but I'm grateful to be a part of it and salute our veterans in the community. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Solomon. Mr. Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to keep this down to one item today for the benefit of a lot of folks. Yes, I'll take that pat in the back. The biggest thing that just recently happened, I got a newsletter from the National League of Cities yesterday, and Rapid City was recognized as a forerunner of early learning. Rapid City now is transitioning into early learning South Dakota. And just a little bit of background on this is that Mayor Allender started this whole program up, and I was happy to participate in that program, and it's been a good thing for an awareness at this level for starting off a program. Rapid City estimates that we're spending about $15 million annually on social programs that are needed because of the lack of education that we're seeing with the general public right now. So this early learning is to be one of the components in bringing forward shall I say, mitigation of the spending of that $15 million. And it'll take probably a generation or two before we get to see the actual outcomes of that. And then in a positive way. And it's been suggested that with that $15 million, we could build one fabulous facility here within Rapid City, but that doesn't take care of the problem. It only takes care of the facility. So we've got lots of issues dealing with the shall I say, the social issues that we're facing within Rapid City, all the way from homeless to medical care to everything else that is associated with people with a lower education. And the last item I've got is that at the next Legal and Finance, I'm going to be absent from here. I'll be in Kansas City for the National League of Cities Summit, and that they hold every year. So I think the biggest thing that I'm going to be involved with that is that there's an opportunity for 6 university courses that I'll be taking down there. And if I get those completed, I'll be short 2 more to go to get to my next level of certification there. So I'm really looking forward to that opportunity to get into Kansas City. And yes, I am going to look for the barbecue places as well.
Smart.
Yes.
When in Rome.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Nordstrom. I have just 30 to share. I'm kidding. No. Rapid City Public Library meeting is next Monday. I'll probably have some more information at the next Legal and Finance meeting. Last I heard, there were some vacant positions, so if you know of anybody, it's a wonderful place to work. Our airport board meeting will be next Tuesday. I will be able to share after. The big news is our Human Relations Commissions, the HRC MOA. They had a retreat last Saturday, and they also did new elections. Lloyd LaCroix, who is the county commissioner, is now the new chairman. They're making some changes, and they will be bringing them forward to City Council probably in the next month or so. And some exciting news. Next week, a few of us from the Human Relations Commission will be going to Los Angeles. Rapid City has been acknowledged by the National Humanities Council, 1 out of 3 cities in the United States. Rapid City, it's Nogales, Arizona, and Charlottesville, South Carolina, for the work that they are doing to improve relations within the community. We have a lot of work to do, but it really is nice to see that we are being recognized for the efforts that we are making. Also, speaking of the HRC MOA, last week they did a candy drive, and my fellow colleagues helped contribute and brought lots of candy for a trunk or treat in Ward 4. Thank you to my colleagues that contributed. I believe we had around 13,000 pieces of candy, and I believe the police department raised $350 towards that cause. $250. So thank you. That's just wonderful. And last but not least, took a tour of the new Oyate building about a week and a half ago. It is a state-of-the-art federal facility. It is amazing. And then on Monday, I also took a tour of the old building to compare where they are now and where they're going towards, and it will be a wonderful facility and desperately needed in our community. So, thank you. That being said, all of these items will be moving forward to next Monday's City Council meeting, and I will welcome a motion to adjourn. Second. I have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Solomon, second by Mr. Jones. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We'll see you on Monday.